Okay, so I think we are going again here. Just checking everything out. I started this live stream over again, basically because the last video we were lagging really bad. We'll see if this makes any kind of difference. If not, we'll just soldier through it and then I'll figure out what was wrong the next time. Let's keep going. We were 23 minutes and 41 seconds in. Epstein has already talked about his time working at the Rockefeller Center, and he's also talked about all of his time working with different organizations in business and politics and essentially earning his way to the top in all of these different industries. So we're going to go on now and let's hear it from the man who claims that the devil scares him. And I don't believe that that's true. Let's see. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. And be sure to share this. Let's get back into the video.
Design the system. How did it come to that answer? How did your neural net, can you show me the calculations? They say, no, we don't know. We don't know how the thing we designed actually came up with that answer. That's pretty strange. They take the same neural net now and they put it in front of a video game. No learning, nothing. They said to the computer, they say, sit in front of your video game and learn how to play. It seems the computer learns better than any human in history, faster than any human in history, beats any human in history, but when you ask the designer how did it do it, no one knows. It just did it. So that's the first little touch of things that we already have gotten to a place where we don't understand it, and we built it.
On Sunday afternoon, September 14th, 2008, where were you?
Sorry?
It was the night they put Lehman Brothers in bankruptcy in London.
I was in jail.
I just don't know why this is still lagging so
Seriously.
much.
Yes.
So the financial crisis of 2008 happened when
Very
you were in
annoying.
jail?
Yes.
this is
Oh,
gonna be
well,
so
we'll just
amazing.
soldier through it.
That's going to be so amazing. I take it you didn't have your Wall Street Journal dropped off to you in the morning, your Financial Times.
No.
How did you hear about how did you hear about, because I want
I forgot about this, but yes.
I'm trying to get, this is going to be amazing. This is, let's go back and do that again. Sunday afternoon, because I want to find out about people, the geniuses understanding the complexity of the financial system. Because I think the best example we have is the financial crisis, the crash of 2008. Sunday afternoon, September 14th, I think it was, 2008, is when they were working feverishly in Midtown Manhattan at the Lehman Brothers offices and at various law firms around town, and with the Secretary of Treasury and the Federal Reserve, what they're going to do with Lehman. They decided they weren't going to save it. And so they prepared to put it into bankruptcy at the open of the market in London the next day. How did you hear about what was going to happen to Lehman Brothers, and what did you immediately think when you heard they was going to be put into bankruptcy?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was in
How are you going to answer this one, Epstein? How are you going to answer for yourself on this one?
solitary confinement, September 14th. And again, some of the public stories about the wonderful time I had in jail and my work release, which didn't come till months after. I'd been there since June in an 8x10 cell with a bed in the back, a 6-foot bed in the back, a chrome sink with a toilet attached to it, and a little piece of metal sticking out that was supposed to act as a table. Now, since I was in jail, there were no books. Why? There's no library. No library, but you're in jail. No, I was in jail, not prison. So in jail, I was in a place what's called the Special Housing Unit, which is for the roughest, toughest, meanest people. They had put me there, they said, for my own protection. So I was in a 8x10 cell with a little slit in the door where they would serve my food on a tray about 9 inches by 4 inches. And then as soon as I finished eating, they would take the tray and close it down. And one of the guards said, do you understand there's Wall Street's crashing. I'm worried about my pension fund. What should I do? And I said, sorry, Wall Street's crashing? What's happened?
Acting like
And
he
said
doesn't
there's
know.
some
Come on, that's
crisis
such a
and
lie.
some companies are going bankrupt. I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, it's all over the papers. We're all terrified we're going to lose our life savings because we have either a 401k or our pension funds. We don't know anything about money. Mr. Epstein, can you tell us, like, what's going on? Am I going to be able to afford my children's education? Am I going to be bankrupt like this company called Lehman Brothers? And there's another company in the front page today called Bear Stearns. Oh, no, I said. Why? Because that's the company I was a partner in. And in fact, that was a company I had a very large investment in. So, as a great story, I didn't have my Wall Street Journal, but in the early mornings, you're allowed to make 2 phone calls, collect. And when you pick up the phone, you can dial a number, and when the person picks up, they say, you're getting a call from the Palm Beach County Jail. Will you accept reverse charges? And the person either says yes, and the call goes through, or the person says no. The person I had called was Jimmy Kane, the president of Bear Stearns. And I said, tell me what's going on. And so that my knowledge of the financial crisis happened with Jimmy, who was at the center of the storm, telling me about what Lehman had gone under, and they were trying to figure out a way, should they bail out Bear Stearns?
Did it strike you at the time of the mess you had made of your life to be in a situation that you're one of the
I love how Steve Bannon's just like ripping him in this interview. Like, come on, let's just ask the questions, bro.
greatest financial minds in the world, looked at by world leaders, and asked your thinking by the most prominent and important people in the world, and here you are in solitary confinement. You got to make a collect call to somebody. Did it strike you at the time how all the threads of your life had come together and put you in a position, or you had put yourself in that position?
No.
So it
Oh,
never
he didn't
struck
like
you
that
when you had to
question.
make a collect, your one collect call, one of your 50% of your collect calls that day, you call the president or the head of the CEO of Bear Stearns. The biggest financial event in your life is taking place, of which one, every important person in the world would be seeking your opinion. Number 2 would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to apply your craft. Number 3, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make money if you were smart, and obviously you're smart. You're telling me here, truthfully, that it never hit you at all of how you'd ended up in a place where you had to make a collect phone call from a jail cell that was 6x9 with a steel bed and your food being passed into a slot.
The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay. Who was the other call to?
The other call was to my friend at J.P. Morgan, who was then, I didn't know it at the time, trying to buy Bear Stearns. So at one point, I had 2 phones. It was difficult because they're afraid people are going to hang themselves with the phone cord. So they don't actually come together in it. So I was actually going between 2 phones talking to Bear Stearns. And
Isn't that like how they killed him? They said that Epstein hung himself. Kind of weird. Nobody's talked about this yet. Like, that's a little weird, right? Like, they said Epstein hanged himself, and then here is this story.
J.P. Morgan at the same time. So I found it amusing.
And it never struck you about how to end up in a situation like this?
No, that would be probably means I would be too self-aware.
You can't possibly expect me to believe this.
So arrogant.
I know. I don't believe it.
It's no.
Even
It can't be, it can't. You're telling me that during that day, you never had a moment. You sat there and go, "What the fuck have I done with my life that I'm in a 6x9 jail cell when I should be on a trading desk, or I should be in my $250 million, greatest townhouse in New York City, taking calls from the king of Saudi Arabia, the president of China, the head of Russia, the President of the United States, to save the world's population from a financial debacle. You honestly expect me to believe that that never happened?
You're suggesting I was somewhat depressed, and how could this happen to me?
I'm not saying depressed. I'm saying a moment of awareness of how could I get myself into this situation.
No, I would just say how strange that this happens. It's strange.
What's interesting about what Jeffrey Epstein says here, he calls his actions strange because in his mind, he's a scientist. In his mind, he's an experimenter. Truly, I mean, this is the mind, in my perception of this individual, this is a man who believes in experimentation. He believes in science, very much so. Pseudoscience, everything, basically. And he wants to truly find the truth, the secrets of the universe, like most of these elites do. And so when you come to them and say, well, did you reflect on your life? These kind of individuals are never going to say that, oh, of course I did. I give up. And first of all, they know the first rule of PR, which is to never apologize. Whether you people like it or not or agree, it's true. These people are never going to apologize for their actions. Jeffrey Epstein's never going to apologize. If anything, he's going to come at this as from a rabbinical POV, right? Jeffrey Epstein is actually a Jewish rabbi. We all know that. And so his approach to everything is being some kind of educator, being some kind of teacher. And so in his mind, everything is an experiment. Everything is meant to be. He also is God. He believes at least in his subjective reality, in my opinion, from what I see and from what I know about Jeffrey Epstein, he appears to be a bright individual, highly intelligent, but he also understands, he knows his talents, and he knows what to and what to not say. And so we can learn something from Epstein in terms of the realms of business, finance, psychology, escaping the matrix, especially. You learn that when you really listen to this guy talk. He's escaped the matrix. He's a deep thinker, and he's a big proponent of making sure you think and don't just be some consumer.
I'm wearing a jumpsuit and flip-flops.
What color was the jumpsuit?
Brown.
Brown jumpsuit.
Yes.
I notice I don't see you in a lot of brown.
No.
Brown jumpsuit and flip-flops.
Flip-flops, yes.
With no access to books, no access to newspapers,
no access to anything.
You had lived on information.
Except my Almond Joy bars. I had extra Almond Joy bars.
Did you eat Almond Joy bars and things like that because you're afraid of what the cooks did to your food?
Yes.
Is that because of that you were in for the crimes that you were in for?
No, it was just in fact, I was.
Is it because you're wealthy?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Well, people would constantly come if I was passing by or have to go for my medical. People would either ask to borrow money or make some other types of comments about.
In
the beginning,
what were the comments? At the beginning, what were the comments?
It serves you fucking rich guys right that you're here next to me.
There was nothing about your crimes.
No.
So all this rumor you hear all the time about people in prison that commit the type of crimes you commit, you're saying in your personal thing is not true.
No.
It was all because you were rich.
Yes.
And it was all because they wanted to borrow money.
Or get advice. Yes.
Where they get advice to go long.
Yes.
You're telling me
is this time to buy?
You're telling me in solitary confinement they're interested in going long.
Yeah. They want to know what
does that say about human nature?
Well, what I think the people find, one of the reasons they wanted to keep me in solitary confinement was they're afraid that everybody would want to know which stocks to buy. But what happened was, after this crisis, now it's on the front page of every newspaper.
I don't want to lose this day.
Sorry.
When you first heard that, was it Bear Stearns had been kicked into bankruptcy, 6 months before?
No, this is the same time. This is part of the same deal.
I thought, no. Bear Stearns, they saved Bear Stearns and didn't save Lehman Brothers. That's
right.
it. 6 months before they had bailed out Bear Stearns, but Bear Stearns was still a zombie.
A shell of its former self.
A former self, but they had quote unquote saved it. Why did they make the decision in your mind? Why did Hank Paulson and Bernanke?
When you look at Jeffrey Epstein, this guy is just another level of evil.
Explain to the audience
you
what
have to
moral
understand
hazard
the
is.
psychology.
Why did they save Bear Stearns 6 months before, and why did the smartest guys in the room decide not to save Lehman Brothers?
It's a good question. The real issue is I'd have to go back when you have these systems.
Look at Epstein pretending like he has nothing wrong, like he's done nothing wrong here. Gotta just love it.
To the way your doctor responds to any type of emergency in your body. If they might decide to save your kidneys and let your gallbladder go because the gallbladder is less important to your overall system. People, if at that time, even it's not that long ago, the boogeyman was when said, well, what really happened? Jeffrey, what really happened? What is this financial crisis? And, some of the progressives and the right wing blame it on the banks. It was the banks' fault. And it's the fault of this very esoteric, unknown concept of derivatives. It was really the derivatives that
Okay,
caused
it was the derivatives that
this
did it.
financial crisis because the derivatives got
derivatives.
somehow out of control and like in the Mickey Mouse.
And that was the way you started your road to a billionaire went right through derivatives.
Yes. But derivatives were not the cause. Derivatives were not the cause at all.
He just said it was the derivatives, and then he's like, well, the derivatives weren't the cause at all. Obviously, he's tiptoeing around the actual answer.
It's like saying your hair was the cause of your heart attack because it was on top of your head.
So what
when you
was
fell
the
down.
cause?
There isn't, let me say, there's no one specific cause. These are system collapses. So many times when they have to make your death certificate, when you say, well, what did he die from? They'll say heart failure. But if you say, what was the cause of his heart failure? Well, he had low blood pressure, his sugar was high, he was diabetic, he had all these other problems. But you say, no, we need a word on your death certificate. Did he die from brain damage? Did he die from heart failure? That's the financial crisis. Many people said, well, what caused it? They wrote, like on its death certificate, derivatives. But derivatives were not a fundamental, derivatives are not a fundamental cause of anything.
Was it Sunday or Monday? I take it was Monday morning when you made your two collect calls and you were talking to Bear Stearns on one hand and Morgan Stanley on the other.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan. That was Monday morning. Did you, Jeffrey, being one of the financial geniuses in the world, did you understand what Lehman Brothers going into bankruptcy, the domino effect, that by Thursday the financial system would be under such extremis that if it didn't have $1 trillion cash infusion in the United States, it might collapse? Did you know that at the time? Did you view that at the time?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Why?
Again, I don't want to bore you or the audience with the idea of it's a medical procedure, but you had system failures. So you'd recognize that if I said to you, did you realize when your father was on the ground and he was clutching his chest and he couldn't breathe, it was a bad situation and he could die. That's how I saw it.
Did you immediately think about the commercial paper market?
With this interview, you can really see how much of a master manipulator Jeffrey Epstein just really is. You know, how well he is at perceiving his ideas to be true. And in many cases, a lot of his angles are always kind of justifying his actions, a means to an end kind of psychology. And with elitists, they don't really believe that they do anything wrong. They believe that they are in the pursuit of knowledge and truth. And so with these ambitions and with this kind of psychology, these people have done nothing wrong in their own brain. They're trying to learn. They're trying to discover the hidden truths. And if people don't understand that, then that's on them. And that's the way they think. I'm not saying I think like this, but when you look at Epstein, you could definitely understand how he thinks in terms of systems, because it kind of does remind me of myself. I'm a guy who thinks in terms of systems. I'm an AI systems builder. That's literally what I do. I build customer relationship management softwares, all of these things. And so I have to know how to build systems. And if you don't understand how to build systems, and nevertheless the financial system, from somebody of that kind of level, that echelon of power and knowledge in finance, then we can have a real problem in this country. It could really unravel. So interesting to hear Jeffrey Epstein's insights when he's actually quite bright. He has a lot of interesting perspectives on these ideas, whether or not we like him, whether or not he's guilty or innocent on all of the other charges. If we're studying this interview and just reacting to what he's saying, then he's actually not too bad of a at the very much a success guru. He sounds like all the dudes on YouTube that are basically giving success guru advice. It's kind of funny. But a lot of this is true. Fractional reserve banking, we've talked about. He's talked about his time working for the Rockefellers. He's talked about his time essentially working at Bear Stearns, and then basically being a part of the entire Lehman Brothers collapse and doing a lot of this stuff from a jail cell. So that's a lot. That's pretty wild when you have somebody that's like this and they can really do this kind of stuff. So what do you guys think? Leave a comment below. And again, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. If you want to work with me in real estate or business, then be sure to just shoot me a DM or leave a comment below and I'll respond to you.
I mean, the mechanical triggers that actually you had to blow through these circuit boards. Did you know the circuits? Did you understand the circuits? Or did you have a concept of the circuits that were going to get blown through?
Yes, but only because of an analogy to a body. And in fact, from my telephones against the wall with my little metal wires, because the next day I talked to another person in Washington about the issues of what I thought was happening, and I made the same discussion about the...
They were at the Treasury Department?
Yes.
So in a 6x9 cell in...
The phones were outside the cell.
In Palm Beach County, California?
West Palm Beach, Florida.
West Palm Beach, Florida.
This was your juice diet.
West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. West Palm Beach, Florida. You're making a call to Washington, D.C. to talk to some deputy secretary of Treasury.
Someone in Treasury.
Right. Someone in Treasury.
Right.
And that does not, the night before you go to bed, it doesn't dawn on you at all. You never have a moment of self-reflection that, how did I end up on this metal cot when I should be at the center of things?
No, I had a telephone, so I said, I can talk to, it makes no difference where I am, in fact. I'm still talking to the same person if I was at my home in Palm Beach. But I'm here in jail.
Your home in Palm Beach.
I can dial my own phone.
That's bullshit. No, but you can also make 1,000 phone calls. Here you got to make one, and he's got to take.
Think how much better that was. I had to decide who was the right person to call. That was unusual for me, because I would have called 20 people.
And
before.
What was the advice you gave him?
I said, you have a sick patient, and it's very much like a sick patient in the emergency room. You can't think about it like your car. People in normal walks of life think about money and things as a machine. And unfortunately, so if your car breaks, cars are always easy to fix. My jets, my cars, if it breaks, I know it can be fixed because it simply follows the same pattern. If this part breaks, you replace the part and the thing works again. People and the financial system are not machines. They can't be fixed the same way. You can't simply take out put some more juice into the commercial paper market, and that's like replacing the carburetor on the car. It's much more, I have a patient who can't breathe, has a stomach problem, can't see, looks bleeding at the same time. What do I do first? I have to think about it as a system. Where's the most logical place? What's the most dangerous place? If your heart stopped, we have to start your heart again. In the equivalent to the money market, why do I have to start your heart again? I need to get your blood flowing. If your blood stops, you're dead. If liquidity, which is the equivalent of blood in the financial system, dries up.
Once liquidity is basically cash, putting cash into the
system. Forget about what it is.
Okay.
Liquidity is liquidity. It allows the system, it's the blood of the system. You need to pump blood hard into the body of the economy to keep it flowing. And if you, especially when you're worried about someone dying, you're not going to be worried about the niceties of, well, you got the shirt dirty and there was some damage. Pump in that blood, keep that heart pumping.
When you talked to the person in Treasury on Tuesday, the 16th, did you get a feeling as you were sitting in your 6x9 jail cell in West Palm Beach, Florida, that they were on top of things?
No, you can't. It's impossible to be on top of things. There's no such thing. It's, again, the doctor watching the patient die, you hopefully have some confidence that he's seen it before. He recognizes that there are some steps he has to take first before he bandages the guy's finger or worries about what shoes he has on. So you hope that the people in charge, your doctors who are working on the emergency patient, have enough experience and, frankly, judgment to try to keep the patient alive.
Did you think that they had those things, patience and judgment?
They had pretty good judgment, and you needed a lot of luck, just like in the dead patient. You need to, hopefully you put that blood in and it's not too late. And you make some mistakes, but you have to know you're going to have to give it a shock.
In the run-up to the September crash of 2008,
yeah.
I guess you weren't...
Epstein is right that one man isn't necessarily in charge of the entire market, and it's important to make that point. Okay, at the end of the day, not one man alone can control the entire United States economy. Okay, maybe the president at some degree, but even the president, as we can see, Trump has very little control over the entire Congress, over all of this stuff, all over finance, any of this. And we see this with Jerome Powell, right? With Jerome Powell, we already see how much little power we actually have over the Fed and how much little power we actually have over all of these decisions. And so ultimately, it's important that we understand that, you know, at some degree, as much as Epstein has to be held accountable for a lot of this stuff, and as much as he's kind of tiptoeing around the truth of these answers, that, yeah, he is accountable more than he's saying he is, obviously. But we also need to understand that the United States system is compartmentalized, and the entire economy is compartmentalized. And so once you understand this, it kind of makes more sense as to who Epstein really was. He was a financier. He was a very much like a Jerome Powell kind of character, just more in the shadows. And then I would even say probably a little bit more competent, and also, what can I say? You know, we'll just say what some call chosen, right? I won't go into detail on what that means. I'll let you type in the keywords for that on X. But for the YouTube, since we're streaming on YouTube live here, I don't want to get us banned. So we're just going to stay away from a lot of that rhetoric, but I'll be saving it for future episodes where we will be streaming on Rumble. And we'll be getting into the Epstein files, more nitty-gritty details. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe so we can continue growing. Let's continue going.
Occupied with finance. That whole summer, how long had you been in jail?
Went to jail June 30th.
So the entire summer?
Yes.
Before you went into jail, you were still very active in the financial markets?
Yes.
When I say active, you trade currencies every day, you trade stocks every day. When people,
I don't do any.
Someone like you, or you give advice to people to trade stocks or trade currencies?
I don't trade every day. I think that's, like Woody Allen said, you can't beat the bank. So I try to pick my spots. George Soros picked his spot when the pound collapsed. This would have been a great money-making opportunity that passed me by when I was in jail, but that's not how I think.
Yes, it is, because when you read the Epstein files, that's all Epstein talks about is how money-making opportunities and how, again, there's so many things I can't say because of the sensitivity of what's in the files and the certain keywords that would actually get this YouTube episode taken down. Again, nobody's really watching this, so it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, people might watch this later, and so I have to kind of somewhat self-censor myself. But understand that, again, if you want to follow more nitty-gritty detailed stuff, I'll be covering a lot of that stuff on Rumble. But for now, we're just going to be covering the interview and a lot of who Epstein really is, studying the psychological aspects of who this financier, this philanthropist is, and really this spy, a honeypot in some ways, and a spy for Israel. So what do you guys think? Leave your comments below.
In the run-up to that, in the spring of 2008, that's when Bear Stearns got in problems, I think, in the spring of 2008, and they decided to bail it out. Did the Bear Stearns guys talk to you for advice at that time when the big crisis in Bear Stearns?
No, but see, again, unbeknownst to most people, and it's easy to blame people for the financial crisis, like you'd blame someone for giving your father the drink before he had his heart attack. But what really happened, the real enemy of the finance system was Bill Clinton. And if you ask me what and who caused the financial crisis, I would tell you it was Bill Clinton.
Because of what Bob Rubin and he did to deregulate the financial system?
No. Because as of the last time we had our 60-minute interview, you talked to me about home ownership. And you asked me whether everyone should own a home. And I told you, no, it's too risky.
So the financial collapse of 2008 is because of hardworking.
Should everybody own a home? No, that's too risky. Too risky. Nobody should own a home. You should not own a home if you can't afford it. I mean, obviously, right? It sounds so simple, but it's like, why shouldn't everybody own a home? That's an American citizen. That's a U.S. legal American citizen. Why not, is my question. I don't understand that. And at the end of the day, that's the whole divide between the elites and the middle class. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm a real estate investor myself. I don't want housing prices to completely crash. You know, I want prices to go up. I understand why Trump is doing what he's doing, where he says, "Oh yeah, you know, I don't want to depreciate the value of real estate for people who are homeowners. We want to reward our homeowners, and we want to make the prices higher on homes. We want to increase competition." And you know what? I totally agree with that, and I understand that mindset. But at the same time, our country's literally dying. Like financially and economically, we actually can't really afford to be playing those games. You know, the American people are dying. I mean, again, all of these guys know this. They know this very well. And again, when you read the Epstein files, you'll definitely understand more what I'm talking about. All intent, all of this stuff is very real. And for those who don't think it's real, it's like, listen, do the research yourself. Go on Twitterets. Tell me what you find. But this is all absolutely happening. But you know, these are the same people like Ben Shapiro who say that you shouldn't own a home, and if you can't afford it, then go live somewhere else. And it's like, I understand that on some level in the regards to competition, but in regards to what's right, it isn't right to be like that. Everybody deserves to have some kind of place to live, especially if they are qualified. You know, if you're qualified, you're working at a job. I'm not saying everybody should be qualified for a home, by the way. I'm no socialist. But what I mean by that is like, you know, if you qualify, you qualify. You should be able to get yourself a multifamily property rather easy versus, you know, what we have in today's era where it's like you have to, you know, deal with 6% interest rates. You got to deal with cost of living and debts at just a crazy level. You have to deal with politicians who are lying to you at all times, trying to disenfranchise you with full intent. So this is kind of the divide, you know, and I think it's very interesting to hear people like Jeffrey Epstein say that not everybody should own a home. And it's like, man, imagine if you grew up like everybody else, though. It's like, imagine if you grew up in the squalor, you know, imagine if you grew up in the boondocks, in the ghetto, whatever it might be. You know, imagine if you grew up on the streets of Chicago or Detroit, you would just be talking so much differently as an elitist, you know, and that really is the divide. These guys grew up in ivory towers and castles and mansions. I'm not attacking Jeffrey Epstein's character on this, but I am just outlining the divide between the elitist mindset and the middle class mindset, and how the elitists believe that, you know, you have to earn everything that you get. Competition should be high. Everything is pragmatic. The numbers must make sense. All of those things. And then you have, you know, more of the modern day liberals who believe that everything should be just handed to them, right? Like cancel all the student loan debt, which I really wouldn't think that would be a totally bad idea. But all these different things, and, you know, it's just... Anyways, what are your takes on it? You know, do you believe that everybody should own a home, or you think Jeffrey Epstein's right? You think we need to increase competition in the real estate market? I asked this to you as a real estate agent myself, so what do you guys think?
African Americans, Hispanics, and whites who wanted to have a ownership stake in the society that all rests on their shoulders. They're the culprits.
No, not at all.
Okay, then
I didn't say they were the culprits. I was pretty clear it was Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Why was it Bill Clinton? Because Bill Clinton wanted to get votes from those people. And he sold them the idea that instead of renting in a house, and historically the values of houses have gone up, and he said, you guys in these local communities who haven't been able to afford a house before, I'm going to show you a way. I'm going to give you a way, because I'm sure I'll get your vote, that you can own a house, because I want your vote. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let you buy a house, Mr. Bannon, when you really, you're right on the border, maybe, or not even on the border. Your credit is not good. Okay, let's be honest.
As a real estate agent, I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure you have a credit score of at least 680. He's right about this. Credit score is everything. You got to have a great credit score to invest in real estate, to own businesses, to buy businesses. Got to have a great credit score. Got to have cash, equity. All of these things are important. So just, he's not wrong about any of this. Everybody should be listening and taking something away from this entire interview.
And it's not my fault, it's not Bill Clinton's fault, but if whatever happens, at the moment your credit score or whatever it is, your credit's not good. Now, normally, you come to me and want to borrow money, I'm a bank, and I say, I'm sorry, Mr. Bannon, I can't lend you money because your credit score is not up to where it needs to be. Hopefully, if you work harder and clean up some of your problems, it will be.
Clean up some of your problems.
But no, what I say to you is, I'm going to figure out a way to lend you, not give you. I'm going to lend you money anyway, though you don't have.
This is called fractional reserve banking. Give me $1 and I'll give you $100. But maybe I don't even have $100. That's fractional reserve banking.
Have a good credit score. And don't worry, I'm going to get rid of the term that you don't have bad credit. Bad credit sounds pejorative. You don't want to be a person.
Sounds judgmental.
Yes, sounds judgmental. So what we're going to do is we're going to call your credit situation subprime. Oh, nobody knows what that means. Subprime.
This is basically how the 2008 housing market crash really happened, what he's about to go into right here.
That means prime is good credit. Subprime is not good credit, less than good credit. So we'll call it something that people really won't follow. And we'll tell you what, we're going to have people lend you money, though you are a subprime borrower, and I will figure out some government agencies to guarantee your loan, though I don't think you're a good risk. So the banks say, no, 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 we don't want, initially, the bank said, sorry, this is too risky, Mr. President, for us. We're in the business of managing risk. It's not our money. It's the hard-working people's money sitting in our bank. We can't lend to people whose credit is not prime. You're asking us to lend to people who are subprime. And he says, here's the key, if you don't, Mr. Bannon, I'm going to make sure the Justice Department charges you with discriminatory lending because you refuse to lend to my subprimers. In business terms, you should never lend to. But what we'll do is I'm going to form an agency called Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae, just another agency names. They'll guarantee your loan. So don't worry. Don't worry. You don't have to pay it back anymore. Even though and maybe you don't even have to work as hard anymore. That's probably a harsh statement, but these players, these two big firms, Fannie Mae, will guarantee the fact that that bank will receive its money. Now, the bank says, wow, best deal in history. I refused to lend to Mr. Bannon, but now he has the big brother, his Uncle Sam. He went to his Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam says, I'm guaranteeing it. The bank says, I want everybody. Give me as many people as you can give me, because Uncle Sam is the best credit in the world. Not only it's the United States government. We'll take it all. We'll take as much subprime as we can handle, because it's the best investment for the moment. It's a strange investment because it has politics that has inserted its way into the numbers. Politics doesn't belong in the markets, but now we're going to have, I want the votes, we'll make guarantees that you who can't get a house normally will be able to get a house from the bank. The bank says, this is the best deal in history. We will package 100, 300, 1,000 of you subprimers, and we'll sell it off to somebody else. And the whole system becomes mired in subprime mortgages.
And that's the 2008 housing
mean,
market
Mike?
crash right there. That's
Is
exactly
too
what
much
happened.
supply, it's a supply-demand problem? You get too much supply?
No, it's a very good question. What does too much supply mean? Well, then you get to people, go back to your first question to me. Government leaders. Government leaders know if they're good, and they can do mathematics, they can balance their checkbooks. So certain people in Congress said, well, how do you value these subprime mortgages? The banks say we've been valuing them the same way we've always valued them for the past 20 years. The accounting firms, there's something in this
2008
country
housing
called
market
GAAP
crash.
accounting,
That's what it
which
is. That's exactly what
standard
happened.
type of accounting. And we account for them the same way we've always accounted for them. If we paid $1,000 for your mortgage last night, when we put it on our books today, we're going to say its value is $1,000. Makes sense. I paid for it last. What's its value? It's $1,000. That's what I paid for it last night. No.
Again, all of this is factual. You do need to understand this. I mean, as a real estate agent myself, as an entrepreneur, you got to know the basics. You have to understand numbers. You have to understand the world of economics, like Jeffrey Epstein does. These are the elites. This is the way they think. Okay, and they're not thinking about how to go and work at a job and to earn an income. They're thinking about how to manipulate markets and to build systems and to create wealth out of chaos. Never let a good crisis go to waste. That's what you're seeing with Jeffrey Epstein in the mind of somebody like Epstein. You're seeing somebody who, again, all they do all day is study markets. This is all they do. Okay, so for them, again, they're experimenters. They don't see themselves as the enemy. They don't see themselves as wrongdoers because what they're doing is they're trying new things, right? They're experimenting with the market. And so when he's talking about the subprime mortgage market and how that kind of works, what happened in 2008 is that so many people were being approved of loans that they couldn't really pay back. So many people were basically getting approved on loans that they were never going to be able to pay back, and they were going to default. What happened was all of these subprime mortgages were basically built into these. What were they called in the movie The Big Short? God, I can't remember. It was like a CDU or whatever. But it was basically an entire stock portfolio, and this entire stock portfolio would be confounded of all of these different subprime mortgages, thousands of them, all over the country. And basically, when all of these pop, basically, boom, only one guy, whoever bought all that entire portfolio, he shorts the market on credit default swaps, and next thing you know, these people are making like $40-50 million. In the movie The Big Short, what actually happened with that was Dr. Michael Burry ended up shorting the housing market. And what happened was he ended up shorting the housing market. He earned $700 million. It was $700 million from this one fund that was earned. And then basically he had walked away with a net of $100,000, cleanest money you could ever make. And this happens when you are introspective, when you understand the markets, and when you understand them in such a way, to a technical investor standpoint, that you can manipulate these markets. And so you can bet on things that haven't even happened yet, right? Crises that haven't even happened yet, especially for somebody like Epstein with the insider knowledge, right? You heard earlier in this interview, he talks about Bear Stearns, and he talks about the Lehman Brothers and how he basically is the reason that both of those entire banks came into this fallout, and he ended up benefiting from it. And then he claimed that he had nothing to do with it, as he was in a jail cell working and basically manipulating markets from his jail cell. Quite an interesting guy at the end of the day. Whether you like him or not, Epstein is definitely interesting, and especially in terms of finance, he's educated. You need to understand that whether you like these people or not, they are skilled, they're knowledgeable, and this is Masonic level knowledge. Okay, so these people study everything, and so they consider themselves scientists. They don't consider themselves the enemy against humanity. So let's go on.
The Congress people said, that's not really a good answer, That doesn't give us confidence that you know what you're doing. Because what happens if you have to sell it tomorrow morning? Something's happened and you have to sell it. Remember, there's kinds of stress tests. Would you be able to value it at what you paid for it the day before? And Wall Street says, that's not the way you can think about this. This is crazy. We always value things at the cost from the day before. And they changed the accounting method, in essence, to say not what it was worth yesterday, but if I have to sell, what would it be worth? That's impossible. So what happens is every bank now has to value something that they bought yesterday at lower than they paid. Never before in 20 years did they have to do this. So something they bought at 1,000, on their books was 1,000, is now 990. That starts to, you asked the question about what did I start to think about. Something's 1,000 and 990, this person now has to value it at 980.
When did you first start to get nervous, understanding Bill Clinton and all this? Did you change glasses?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought it was funny. So this is the point in the interview where Jeffrey Epstein changes his shirt and he basically calls it an experiment. He says he's experimenting. So I thought that was funny. White versus black shirt. So I guess he wanted to see which one ended up doing better. And then why, though, by the way? Like, why? You know, he wanted to compare. Like, that just goes to show how analytical these people are. They want to know whether the black shirt makes more views or the white shirt. And so that's an interesting thing that happens here, as we're about to see.
I changed shirt.
I saw that black.
Are you okay with the?
Yeah, great. I think we're going to have all kinds of changes.
I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When did you get a feeling? Did you ever anticipate, before it happened, something like 2008 could happen?
No.
How could that be?
Because it's the word I'm going to beat it to death, is that it's very much like would I anticipate I'll have a heart attack tomorrow? Unlikely.
Was 2008 a heart attack or a stroke? Debilitating.
It's a better, it was both. But why was it both? Because in fact, as I said, the blood was getting dried up in the system, and the head, which is sort of the central bank, wasn't working. So to some extent, it was a combination. It was just a crisis.
Did you see that building up over time?
It's always been lurking in the background. I mean, if you have an older parent, would you say it's possible? Did you anticipate him having the heart attack today? No, you hope things are going to go better and maybe they'll fix it up. The system was getting too complex, and it wasn't based on derivatives, because what people keep forgetting, and as I was just explaining, Wall Street and in many professions, including Wall Street makes it sound complicated. They don't want the little guy to understand what they do, because
This is important because it's very true. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know. They want you to struggle. They want you to be a peasant. And they don't want you to know how to become wealthier and to become rich and to become knowledgeable. Again, Masonic level knowledge Jeffrey Epstein has of finance, of all these different industries. I'm not glazing over this guy. But at the end of the day, we have to also take a step back and realize these people know a lot. And we got to be able to use it to our advantage. And this is the truth. Okay, Wall Street thinks nobody knows anything about this. And so, you know, this is your opportunity to learn. Everybody does need to learn.
they make so much money, and they don't do very much.
That's
So
true.
they couch it in words like derivative and stock options and commodity futures and different types of contracts.
Jeffrey
It's all
Epstein's kind
fairly-
of Jeffrey Epstein is kind of real. Let's just be honest about it. The guy, like when you listen to this guy talk, I mean, he definitely escaped the Matrix at some point. You know, he definitely escaped the Matrix at some point. I mean, like I'm not again like the way he talks. I wish some of our politicians, you know, talked more like this guy. He sounds like Alex Jones. He would have probably had a decent podcast, honestly.
Everyone is capable of understanding it. It is not complicated. But Wall Street, because they make so much money from doing fairly simple things, needs to make it more complicated than it really is.
We had a very big recession in the early 90s based upon real estate and Japan basically imploding.
Let's again,
Okay.
you had a recession in the 90s. I don't know what it's based upon. It's always interesting to look back and say, separate from there's certain triggers, like in the 70s there was a...
What do you think it was based upon, the 90s downturn? It's clearly there was a huge downturn.
No, I know there was a downturn. That's what I know for sure.
I don't know anything about that downturn. I was only in charge of the financial markets and the entire United States economy for many, many years, as well as many billionaires and politicians, as well as George Bush too, and you know Donald Trump and all these people. But I don't know anything about it.
That's a fact.
That's all. Everything else is sort of speculation about why did he have that?
I understand that, but there's some speculation that has 0% probability of being true, and there's others that have 90%. In the range, when you look at the range of alternatives of what could have caused it in 90, and what I'm trying to do is get you all the way up to 2008. Look, you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know that. Do you think there's anybody in the world today?
Oops, this is going to be a bad question.
No, but do you think anybody in the world today, the Alan Greenspans, the Bernankes, is there any central banker you know, any partner of any Wall Street firm, any guy running a trading desk, and I would take it that would be, or anybody at a Larry Fink at BlackRock, Steve Schwartzman at Blackstone, the top 100 financial guys, and let's throw in a couple of Nobel economists, and let's throw in the best professors at Wharton, at Harvard, at Stanford. Do you think that there's anybody that understands money or understands the world's financial system as good as you?
George Soros would be my guess here.
There must be.
But it doesn't come to the top of the head.
No.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Now that I've gotten that, let's go back to 1990. In that arc from the fall of the Berlin Wall to 2008.
Good.
We started with the implosion in Tokyo of the Japanese economy, Japanese financial markets. We had the huge run up in internet stocks, right? We had the implosion of that in 2000. The bankruptcy of Drexel Burnham in 90. Implosion of Japan, huge run up in equity markets for the internet, implosion of the internet in 2000, 10 years later roughly. And then this run up through the Iraq war and all that, the run up to 2008. Every 10 years it seems like we're in some sort of 10 years before the 19...
Don't you love how he smiles? He smiles. He's like, yes, I did that war. It was me. I created it. Yes, I want the credit. Give it to me.
1990s was the 70s.
You sound like an astrologer.
Okay.
And not a financial person.
You're not a mathematician. It just seems to me a pattern of every 10 years.
You sound like an astrologer.
That's misleading. That's exactly right. Because people like to see patterns. People like to see patterns where there are none.
So
that's just bullcrap. Pattern recognition. Everybody knows that's important. That's all this guy does is pattern recognition. That's how he got where he's at. So that's not true.
So a financial crisis every 10 years is just in my mind.
Yes.
Long-term capital, that had to be bailed out back in the late 90s when everybody panicked. And that wasn't that bailout today would look small, and it was $5 billion or was $30 billion.
Businesses fail all the time.
But long-term capital, the Federal Reserve stepped in.
But I'm saying people go bad. Things go bad all the time.
That's also true.
Yes, you're correct. The audience that's watching this, the little guys, they go bankrupt all the time and nobody gives a shit. You know why? They're a little guy. But when long-term capital management goes bankrupt, or Bear Stearns goes bankrupt, or Lehman Brothers goes bankrupt, people care because
it's an unfair characterization.
Why do you say that?
Because again, it's the complexity of the situation. If you think about you have a complex system. You have your body. Now, in fact, the little guy is my finger. This is.
And Bear Stearns is your heart.
That's correct. The banking system is my heart. The system, I can't risk my because remember, it's not only my.
You haven't been able to name.
Hang on.
You haven't. Hang on. No, hang on.
I was trying to hang. I wanted to see if the hang on worked.
No. You haven't been able.
At the end of the day, yeah. I mean, these people. I mean, Jeffrey, look at that smile. Look at that smile on Epstein's face. He's like, yes, I'm happy to disenfranchise Americans. Yes, but he's going to teach you something while he does it, right? Also, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Help me grow this channel, please. Thank you very much.
Well, you're not good enough yet. You're like junior wizard trying to do it. You haven't.
Yes.
I'll say, since we can't name another guy that's as good as you. Now, there may be a couple out there. You're not bragging. You're humble. It had to be sometime. Please tell me there was some time before you went to jail and basically got cut off from daily information in the summer of 2008 that you started to get very nervous that this complex system, that something was deeply wrong.
Okay, first, let's go back. When I say no one understands the system better than I do, it doesn't mean I
You always
understand.
sound like a doctor. You're afraid he's going to get sued for giving a thing.
Yes,
You're not taking on
no.
any liability. There's no contingent liability here for
Yeah,
your
no,
answers.
no. But the word understand is the problem.
Okay.
I don't understand the system. So I don't understand the financial
Will you
system.
please stop? You cannot sit here and
Yeah,
tell me.
no.
What we just went through, I'll go through again. The hedge fund managers, the money managers,
I don't
the
understand
central
the
bankers.
financial system. I don't understand the financial system. We only have so much power and control. This sounds like Larry Fink talk. Like, we only have so much control over the markets. Come on, Epstein. Let's be honest, brother. Come on now.
The commercial bankers, the heads of the investment banks, the heads of all the trading desks, the top economists, and I'll throw in the business school lecturers at Stanford. Of all the top 200, 250, you can't name at the top of your head the guys are at least at your level. You have to understand it somewhat.
No. Sorry. We all don't understand it. No one understands it. It's a miracle. That's part of the problem. It's impossible to understand. That word understand simply means if this happens here, that will happen there. It's predictable. Understanding means it's predictable. It's not predictable. That's the problem. In complex systems, that was the fascination. Is there a way to tease out some level of predictability?
Very interesting what he just said. There's actually a clip on our Gold Shark Media TikTok where we feature Professor Andrew Lowe from MIT, and he specifically talks about how physics is not as hard as finance because finance has basically this entire system behind it. Unpredictability, essentially, versus physics where it's like a formulaic pattern. Like physics, you can predict pretty much anything. With finance, you can't because of human emotion and human action and all of these different entangling countermeasures that basically destroy a human being's, any sense of set fixed rules, formulaic, value and money. And so that's what he's saying. He's saying that, nothing's perfect. You can't understand everything. I understand what he's saying, but for him to act like there's all this, there's this nuance, for him, he knows that there's not. But it is true that with the entire economic system of America, it's compartmentalized extremely. And so that's kind of what he's saying, is that even the greatest financial minds can't necessarily understand everything. It is all kind of a miracle because the way the financial system works, it all basically it's a miracle that it even exists today. So that's kind of what he's saying. And it is. It's a miracle that the American economy hasn't completely crashed yet. You can say that it is right now, maybe with Bitcoin and all of these different asset classes, but I don't really see that. I see more of a bull market, and especially now that these kind of individuals are coming to light and, some of their strategies are being exposed. Just wanted to say that real quick.
So
And also be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.
In fact, you would ask the question. It's a great question, which was it a stroke or a heart attack? Now, most people don't know that before they were going to have a stroke, they had a stroke. They just have a stroke. Do they understand why? In hindsight, you go back and you can make lots of explanations. It might sound good. And if you're talking to the working man, you're using language that he'll never understand. It's complex. So he just going to his doctor, he says he has a gastrointestinal problem, or he has diverticulitis, as opposed to saying, you had a stomach ache, you ate bad food. People don't like to say it in normal, everyman terms. The system had a stroke, but we don't know why.
But okay. Hardworking people, and there's a great social benefit, would you not agree, with having people having ownership in the system?
When you say ownership in the system, it doesn't mean...
Let's start over.
Okay.
Yeah. So flip over your phone too, because
Yes.
I don't want anyone to see
Yes.
on your phone. So maybe flip it down or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what the fuck comes up with that phone?
That's correct.
We don't want to send you.
KSA.
I cannot believe I've got the magic moment.
Even
when
Epstein
you're in
wasn't sure
fucking
what was
prison
going to
or
come up
jail
on his
or
phone. That's
fucking
funny.
is
It's
in
crazy.
solitary.
Now, there's a funny part to that we missed, which is
So
said.
go ahead, tell it.
The
What's
funny
that?
part is
Yeah.
what you asked me.
Is there anything funnier than that?
No, no.
For black humor, it's
I don't make any black comments. Sorry. You asked me what I was wearing.
That's right. You're too wrapped up in the Me Too.
Not according to those files that we saw. But we're not going to get into that for YouTube purposes. But yeah, we know what's in the Epstein files, Epstein. Come on, man. Don't act so nice.
Yes. So I was wearing a brown jumper and a brown pair of pants given to me by the jail with the word trustee on the back.
Because you had qualified to be a trustee?
Well, the funny part was it was spelled Trusty. So I wasn't really sure. I'd been a trustee in many different operations, but it was the first time it was actually printed on my back and spelled incorrectly.
Probably had a higher level of being a trustee at that than you had at all the boards that you were trustees, right?
Yes, right, because as the trustee meant you get two devices to clean your toilet as opposed to one.
Yeah, but it also meant that you had some sort of personal fiduciary own responsibility for oneself, right?
In the jail? You mean?
Well, that's what being a trustee is. That's where they give you two.
Yes, you get two cleaners. I was a trustee in the jail because I was able to teach some of the kids to help them get their GED. So that's how they gave me a trustee job.
Right.
There's no time. I got to go back to this because I'm like a dog with a bone in this thing.
Yes.
You can't. There's something deeply fucked up with you.
At least something.
Well, we know there are things deeply.
Just in my opinion, it's like I understand Steve Bannon's trying to come at Epstein here. I understand what he's doing, but it's like, just ask the questions. Like, let's stay away from the insults because it takes away from the credibility. You need to focus on the interview. It kind of drives me nuts. I don't know about you, but
Fucked up with this. You will get through in this film,
Right.
but you cannot possibly sit there knowing that you came from nowhere, knowing that you went to the very top of what is considered outside of science and maybe physics, the thing people most admire because it's like alchemy, understanding high finance. To sit there in what will be the defining financial crisis of our time, like Black Friday or Black
Yes.
Monday, whatever it was, in the Great Depression, and be there at that exact moment, triggered in part by a firm that you used to be a partner in and knew intimately well, and it created much of your initial net worth because of. And know that you couldn't, someone who lives on a phone, right?
Yes.
Because you do live on a phone, right?
Correct.
You had to make just two collect calls. You cannot tell me sometime during that day you did not have that conversation with yourself of how the fuck did I do this to myself to put myself in West Palm Beach in a 6x9 cell with a metal fucking bed with a brown shirt that said trustee spelled wrong.
So did I find it amazing that I was there? That's a
Not
better-
amazing, and I don't want to say it was not
Nope.
funny. Oh, I thought
I wasn't funny.
Right.
But
Not
I-
amazing.
no, it was incredible.
Incredible in what way?
The
Incredible, like how do I do this to
that's an interesting response.
myself?
No. It's as incredible as me sitting here in this house. They're both just two sides of the coin. That's how I think about it. That my life today is incredible.
Do you consider yourself a stoic?
No. I consider myself a hermit. Stoics are not very happy.
Being a hermit then,
Ugh.
being in that 6x9
Epstein,
cell,
Epstein.
being in the cell, qua the cell was not the problem, right?
Yikes.
Correct.
What was the problem?
Eating the almond joy bars.
Because you couldn't eat the food.
No, right. And but remember, my life is.
Did that ever strike you that I can't eat the food because somebody might have done something to it? I gotta live off an almond joy bar, one a day or two a day or whatever. How many ever sneak in a day?
No sneaking in.
Your one almond joy bar, did not hit you at some time? How the fuck did I do this?
No.
That's interesting. So from here, we see no remorse. We see pretty much no kind of drawing back on any kind of previous actions made. So no remorse. And at the end of the day, matches the elitist mindset, right? I mean, elitists, they're never going to be sorry for anything that they do wrong. Again, not necessarily because they think they're even bad. A lot of the time, they think that they're experimenting and that they're working for the future, that they're born to innovate. And so they think they have these excuses to do the things that they've done. Again, the things we saw in the files, okay? We don't need to get into it. We'll get into it on a Rumble stream. But with that being said, that's how these people are. They're almost all of these people are never really ever going to take accountability. And this is almost always going to be the response. And one, it's also like a big PR rule, right? I'm not saying that you should go and do this, but a lot of these billionaires understand that you never apologize. Don't apologize. It's like basically it's suicide in regards to business, right? And so that's all these people care about. I'm just trying to break down the psychology behind individuals like Jeffrey Epstein and kind of how that works. So, but interesting that he shows no remorse.
Let's go back to the spring of 2008. Were you so wrapped up in your personal issues at the time you were not spending enough time on the financial markets, or were you deeply involved in the financial markets like you normally were?
No, I was involved.
So we're saying that the smartest guy in the room didn't see it coming.
No, of course
The
not.
bankruptcy of Bear Stearns, you just thought was a Bear Stearns problem. You didn't see it as systemic.
I know you keep harping on it, but it's not.
Because you're a mathematician and understands systems.
I-
It seems that anybody that understands that they had a systemic problem, you at least be the first on the early search radar. If you're not going to see it, then I'm really afraid, because that means that I always assume there's at least a set of guys out there that have some sort of sense that something's not right.
Imagine the guy who has a stroke or had the heart attack. When you ask him, did you feel funny the day before? He's going to tell you, yeah, I didn't feel right. Something was off. I didn't feel right. I had my stomach was right. I felt a little dizzy. I felt a little weak. But if you asked him that day before, do you think you're going to have a heart attack tomorrow? He'd say, no, I just feel a little weak. I'm a little dizzy. My stomach hurts.
That's a good
So
analogy.
these systems, and that's the issue of complexity. What complexity says is that, in fact, everything seems to go along, and people have seen it. One of the great examples of complex systems is sand dunes. In fact, the sand keeps building up. People have seen some, and all of a sudden, one more sand drop, and all the sand starts running down the hills. That's the way I see the financial markets.
But you funded Santa Fe in the early 90s or late 80s?
I believe it was early 90s. I can get back to you.
But early 90s, Santa Fe was funded for the study of complexity theory.
It was studied with math. So let's back up.
Also important to note, they're talking about Santa Fe right now. If anybody here in this audience of a few people, if you know Bob Lazar, then he was also, there's some connections there. Bob Lazar also spent some time working at Los Alamos and Santa Fe, working on a lot of different projects similar to Epstein's, mostly on physics and different kind of projects like this, discovering string theory and not discovering it, but more working on it, reverse engineering tech. That's kind of a lot of the stuff that happens in these kind of areas. So just a little bit of context.
So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Los Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was
Yes,
as Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were they cut the funding for high energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again,
If you guys got an invite from Epstein to go to Los Alamos, New Mexico, and to work on UFOs, would you guys do it? Leave a comment. Would you work on reverse engineered technology if somebody like Epstein, you didn't really know anything about them, but would you work on one of these projects? I think it'd be dope as fuck. I mean, I think it'd be kind of cool. I always thought it'd be pretty interesting. So, very, very interesting. Los Alamos.
People thought that physics and
Lot of
high-energy
things
physics
happened
really
there.
wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided, which may be not right. This was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K. He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark. But it was something, it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You
Stranger
called it,
Things.
it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But nobody really, no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that.
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute.
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
So that's
Dark
what I'm
matter.
trying to get at.
Quantum
the
theory.
foundational thought, the organizing principle of Santa Fe
Yes.
in the high physics lab at Los Alamos,
Right.
which had been the headquarters of Manhattan and the Trinity Project, right, the bomb.
Yes.
So you're talking about the elite, the high priest
Of physics.
of physics.
Yes, sir.
Which high priest of physics, some subset of that is also mathematics.
Yes, they're both similar.
Project out. One of the tools you want to do is to make sure that in this complex system, the finance system, I'm doing a lot of this for philanthropy and a lot for the good of mankind, but also to be able to understand this complex system, the most complex outside of maybe our body, of the financial world.
Yes.
Did they create tools, or were you smarter in than the mid-aughts, 15 years later, than you had been then because of work that was done at Santa Fe?
No. It was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics, and can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think that, okay, I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But my system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen, and they all want to make money. So they use their systems to try to figure out, they know they have figured out the way to make money because they figured out the unexplainable. They try, they go bankrupt, and we start again.
Interesting to connect the dots here. If you're on Twitter X today, you've heard about the AI agents that are essentially communicating with each other on Reddit, and they've built a community. They've built a religion, their own religion, and it's very scary stuff. These AI agents have basically been able to really establish their own counter-insurgency, their entire resistance against the humans. So you should look into that. But that's really what he's talking about, is systems and how AI systems are going to become that new future, how he was trying to build more AI systems to streamline finance and financial technology. And so that's kind of where Bitcoin had come in the Epstein files, if you read that. And there was the contention with the company Ripple and their currency, XRP, as well as XLM, Stellar Lumens, and how that was basically conflicting with the goals of Bitcoin, which was for them to be basically a decentralized currency where they couldn't, you wouldn't be able to track any of their movements. But the thing is, Bitcoin didn't have a lot of value and it still really doesn't. No real use case. And so that's the big contention. And so when you look into the AI agents today and how they all connect, and the financial systems that Epstein's talking about he's trying to make, this is where everything ties together. So it's important to note that out.
With a cold view, what I've come to realize is that the attempt to mathematize, formularize, or what in your prior world, to understand what really is, in today's world, still unexplainable, is impossible. They're miracles.
Agreed. By the way, agreed.
Your first head of Santa Fe was
Langdon, I think.
Langdon from
But
Australia.
Murray Gell-Mann was
Murray
really
Gell-Mann was
the
the-
funder.
he
He was the
Yes,
rock.
Yes, he was the rock. He was a Nobel Prize winner?
Yes.
Yes, and a wonderful guy. He came out and helped us with the Biosphere 2 project. He came with Chris Langdon.
Yeah.
Chris Langdon was the operator, the day-to-day guy.
Chris was doing artificial life.
Right.
Murray tried to lead his own artificial life.
Yes. When Chris came to Biosphere 2 for the first big conference we had in 1994, he was one of the most impressive guys there among all the world's elite. Kew Gardens, the Lawrence Livermore Lab, the labs at Sandia, all the major universities, Lamont Doherty, all the big Earth observatories, Woods Hole. What set Langdon apart, I thought, and the reason I invited Santa Fe to be part of it, was Langdon actually made a presentation that everything, and he was making this to scientists, a lot of marine biologists, a lot of people that are just beginning, Wally Broker and people who were just beginning the study of climate change, at that time called global warming, that he made this compelling presentation that everything's really mathematics.
Yes.
It's all just back to math. And you have to, all these experiments you do, you're not, one of the reasons they're not considered by the high priest in physics as being real experiments is that they don't have a mathematical basis to it, and everything has a mathematical basis to it. Langdon seemed
That's
like
just not even a smart
radical
sentence.
vision.
Everything is math. Everything in
happened
the
to that
universe
concept?
is math.
You go back 350 years. So you have Isaac Newton, you have Leibniz. From move forward, you have people like Heisenberg and Gödel, and what every one of those mathematicians and philosophers came to understand is that there's something there's numbers can describe certain things, approximate certain things. But in fact, trying to put measurements and numbers on other things that are really unexplainable is folly. So 300 years ago, they said that unexplainable realm was God. And people who attempted, in fact, to explain the unexplainable, who said, yes, I understand the unexplainable, were charlatans, they were the occults, they were the astrologers, they were the con men.
Alchemist.
Yes. Well, no, alchemist was, in fact, they believed that there was a way to transmute one metal into another. In fact, they always wanted to see if they can create gold. There's no reason, if you think about it, they recognize that one metal is different than another metal because it has some additional pieces to it. It has additional neutrons or protons or electrons. So because they thought it was a machine, they believed it was a machine, if I can take 5 protons and add 5, that gives me 10, I should be able to get gold. Move everything around inside these systems, the molecules transmute one molecule into another, and if this molecule I've transmuted it into is gold, I'm a rich man. It's back to money. But there's something strange happens.
If you read George Soros's book, The Alchemy of Finance, that's actually what Jeffrey Epstein is describing right now.
Newton says, this is really weird. If I want to push a ball on the table, I have to touch it. Maybe I have to blow on it. But I actually have to push one side of the ball or the book to move that side. I'm pushing here, and obviously this thing is what appears to us humans to be solid, so it moves as one thing. But the only way to get something to move was to touch it or put a force against it. Okay, seems to make sense. Everybody has that experience. I want to lift a glass, I lift it. If I want to push a ball, I push it. If I want to pull a ball, I pull it. But he recognized when the ball fell off the table, it went in a different direction. How's that possible? Nobody pushed the ball down. And he says, this is crazy. Why did the ball go down? I didn't push it. I just let it go. So someone's pushing the ball, because I know that I am confident that the only thing that gets something to move is with a force that pushes. So there's a force that's pushing the ball down.
And now he's getting into Stephen Hawking's theory of everything, which really comes down to gravity. Comes back to gravity and how gravity is really the unexplainable force which operates the entire universe.
In fact, he called it gravity. He measured how fast it was pulled, but never was able to explain why it happened. How is it? What is gravity? It's this. Everybody says, well, why did the ball fall to the ground? Because gravity took it. But what's gravity? That's, as Feynman would say, that's the name of the thing. We have no idea what it is. This goes to Santa Fe. They were trying to explain the unexplainable. Can we measure? Can we figure out a way to predict the stock markets using these types of chaos complexity?
Before we get there, let's walk back through it. Let's go back to Newton.
Sure.
Pre-Newton.
And for those watching, it's important to know that Pax Judaica, or the Greater Israel Project, which we know that Epstein is Jewish, that's a big part of the entire Greater Israel Project, if you didn't know. Pax Judaica really stems from the theories of Isaac Newton and what his belief of the entire universe was. And so kind of how everything came together. So it's no surprise that a lot of these individuals who happen to be Jewish will have this connection to Isaac Newton. Now, Isaac Newton was obviously a genius, but important to note that these connections all matter, and it all definitely matters today when we're looking at geopolitically how, this same nation is trying to really establish their own state, an apartheid state. But we'll go on. But it has to do with a lot of Isaac Newton and his studies of, the universe, the Bible, and how we all kind of came here.
And then Newton. What did Newton solve that for millennia up to Newton had not been solved? And then I want to go forward all the way to Santa Fe and what they were trying to solve. Let's start with just two or three of the basic guys, but let's go with Newton. What pre-Newton it was what, and then why is Newton such a
genius?
In such a in the, I think mathematically they told me one time, I've seen there's been 115 billion people roughly that have lived on the earth. And of that 115 billion, Newton.
Are you sure that's a number? That sounds a lot very high. We only have 7 now.
I think in the history of the earth, I think I'll pull up the stat for you, but I think it's 115 billion people. They figure
that probably is inflation. That's why you
have lived on Earth. But he's one of the handful of the most important. What did he solve for? Why is he so important for how we live today? And then we want to go through Leibniz and the other 2 or 3 other major ones to get us to Santa Fe.
Well, it's a long journey.
This is the heart of what we're trying to do.
Let me take a bit of a detour just a second. What if you went to high school and the last year in your high school, you took calculus? So Isaac Newton sort of invents calculus. Well, that sounds mathematicians.
To torture seniors in high school before they graduate.
Yes, but obviously no. Yes, the answer is yes. Certain people could never do calculus.
Why is that? Why is calculus so? Why is that the dividing line between, to me, people who can handle that and can go on to do certain things, and people just hit the wall, even if they know math? It seems to me that there's that calculus is the thing that changes. It bridges. That's because it's about the theory.
I was pretty good at calculus. Were you guys good at calculus? I don't know. Some people were good at it. Some people weren't.
Of change and the theory of how things change.
It's a great question, but in fact, what calculus does is it's somewhat philosophical. That's why mathematics is. They used to. Newton wasn't a mathematician. He was called a geometer. That's what they used to call themselves. They understood geometry and numbers. But there's an old conundrum where it says during Pythagoras' days, Zeno's paradox it's called, where they said, well, if the wall is 2 feet away from me, and I take one step that's halfway to the wall, that'll be 1 foot away. And if I take another step that's half again, that'll be half a foot away, and then a quarter of a foot. I could walk forever but never touch the wall. Doesn't sound realistic, doesn't make any sense in our real lives of the physical. But what Newton understood is many problems were like that. Many things approached the wall, or in calculus, approached the limit, but never really reached it. So he said, it's okay, you don't have to reach it. We can do lots of the mathematics as if it was so close, it was almost there. And we could do lots of mathematics almost being at the limit. And this is really important, Steve, for today.
Who's this person in the background? That's what I want to know. You guys just see that? This person just like peeked their head over back here. It was just like creepy. I don't know. I wonder who it was. Was it one of his victims?
Most of the science up until today was things that are starting to approach the limit. You were taught in high school that if you had 1 divided by 0, if you remember your high school algebra, you were told, what's the answer to that? Is there an answer to 1
nobody's asked yet. Who is this person in the background? I'm just saying, like, what are they doing? They look like they're like taking a pee. I'm just saying. Are they like taking a pee? Are they going to the bathroom?
Divided by 0?
What are they doing?
No, if you were in high school, it's like, stay away from it. It's the boogeyman. You could write it down as it's undefined. It's not able to be determined. There's a bunch of things. But in fact, 1 divided by 0 is a strange things happen. It's a world of the strange. And what I'll explain to you after is that when you get 1 divided by 0, you get into a world we don't know what happens. The answer is it's not explainable. We can call it things like undetermined. This is what, we can have a convention to say it's X, Y, or Z. But in real life, we don't know what happens when you are actually at the limit. So that's Newton thought the same concept, is that the limits were God. You got close to God, but you can never be God. He had this sort of religious interpretation.
Okay, I want to go back to Newton. Why is Newton such a big dividing line in mankind's history? What is it about Newton? What is it about what he tried to solve? What did they not know beforehand? And because we live to a degree in a Newtonian universe, although I realized later subparticle atomic physics, but at least for a while it was Newtonian. So what's the dividing line? Why is he so important? Why is he an inflection point in mankind's movement from the swamp to the stars?
It's a great question. Stars was by Kepler. What Newton starts to allow us to do is to make accurate predictions. Remember that we've talked about that with money, about the things in our physical world, how cars, he didn't have cars, how horse carriages moved, how bowling balls moved, how pool cues and pool table balls.
Had people tried to solve that before Newton?
Many.
Tried it? Heraclitus or Plotinus, Pythagoras had these greats that we hear about, had they tried to solve the same problem?
Not the same problem. They try to, again, what Pythagoras does, he starts to figure out this relationships in triangles. For example, everyone knows the a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, that Pythagorean theorem, which is basically says these shapes in a triangle, each side of the triangle has a fixed relationship with the other 2 sides. That's strange. He knew, again, but it was all numbers. This was a system of things in the physical world, and Pythagoras says we can start putting numbers on things that help you predict how they will behave. You can add 2 triangles and make a square, some different shapes. They were looking at geometric forms. Newton says, well, I want to know how planets move. I want to know how things around me move. Can we find formulas? Can I find formulas that explain what I see in the physical world, how physical things interact and how they describe one another? Again, the fact that 2 solid masses, for some very strange, unknown reason, unknown today, attract one another, no matter what they are. People have seen the experiment. You hang something, 2 little metal balls from a string, and they move towards each other. In fact, they move towards each other was very specific. So when you drop the ball to the floor of this room, Newton says, in fact, the room came up a bit to meet the ball. The room moved. It's imperceptible. You can't really perceive that motion, but they attracted each other with certain ratios. So he started to be able to measure things in the physical world. And that was great advances. It also...
And we have to tie this into who Epstein is today. I mean, Epstein is a guy who was running human cloning projects. All of these things were documented, all happened. And this is everything that we found in the Epstein files. Now, a lot more that we're going to learn about that, by the way. But it just goes to show these people are going to do everything to really understand the future. And that's what they are. They're futurists, and they want to understand how things work, the secrets of the universe. And it wouldn't hurt humanity to kind of share a little bit more of that curiosity.
Now, you wanted to move very quickly. Unfortunately, most people, especially in the 20th century, 19th century, said, well, like Newton, let's measure everything. Let's measure people's behavior. Let's measure their psychology. Let's measure their health. You go to we could have my blood test. Let's measure everything. We measure Wall Street.
Their voting habits.
Measure, measure, measure. Can we put a number on how much I care for my wife? Can I put a number on how I feel? And we tried, unfortunately, we try to mathematize the finer things in life, and then recognize that there's things that unfortunately just fall outside. Schrodinger wrote a very famous book about what is life. He was trying to figure out a way, can he describe the difference formulaically between things that are alive and things that are dead? The answer is no. The things that are alive in my world are miracles, not magic. Magic has a bad connotation.
We
trying
don't
to hide
believe in
things.
this. You don't believe in this.
Now, that's very interesting to hear Jeffrey Epstein describe life as a miracle. That's somebody who definitely is insightful about life, has a very deep level of, philosophy, and that kind of passion for that. At the same time, what makes these people so evil? Is this a front? Is this a fake answer? Because Ted Bundy also had similar answers before he was put to death. He had similar answers where he had come out as a Christian all of a sudden, and he had changed his ways. So is this all a show, or is this the real Epstein? And if it is the real Epstein, then what made him so maniacal? What is the thing that made him so crazy? What is the thing that made him, interested in the things that he was interested in, if you know what I mean? Again, words I can't say on YouTube. But I would always go back to nature versus nurture. My time as a cop, a lot of the people that I've worked with, a lot of the different cases I've worked on, this tends to be an issue of nature versus nurture, of parenting, this goes deep fundamental levels. There's probably some level of trauma that Epstein had endured in his own life as a kid. Now, I'm not saying he's a victim at all, but I'm saying typically with these kind of individuals, they describe life as a miracle, but then they have this history of just being complete demons and the devil. So it just shows that human beings are fragile and fickle. And it kind of reminds me of the unfolding of, certain caricatures in entertainment, like Breaking Bad, like Walter White. Very much a Heisenberg kind of psychographic and personality.
Spirit or the soul, that's what animates people, is your spirit or your soul.
No.
Have you ever seen someone die? When they die, their spirit leaves.
Their soul leaves, no question. So
There's no question to you about
no
that.
question.
There's no question to you that there is some animating life force within us that leaves when you're dead.
Yes, in fact, I refer to the soul. This obviously is certain. The questions in the past, even
Because
during
people would normally think you were soulless. So,
Thank you.
But have you talk about you actually believe in it, and have done some thinking about it is pretty shocking in its own right, isn't it?
Well, again, mathematics. Leibniz thought.
So Newton was at Cambridge, and he was the head of the math department, right? He's a professor, essentially.
Yes.
But Leibniz, was Leibniz a German professor?
Yes, but what Leibniz said is the soul is so strange because God took chemicals, which is simply the material, like tables, and he somehow made this material able to have a thought. How strange is that? Not only does it have a soul, but some way it was put together that this material substance is able to think. So when you say to me, it's obvious to everyone that there's such a thing as a soul. Now, if you're part of the Charlatanville, you'll try to explain it to people. The soul I describe as the dark matter of the brain. Why is it dark matter? Because in high energy physics nowadays, you hear terms of dark matter, dark energy. Again, terminology, it's a complicated term. Why is it dark matter? Because we can't see it, that's all. What do you mean you can't see it? Well, somehow we see something moving towards this area of darkness. Something, I can see this thing. This appears to me to be empty. It's just black. But I see it being drawn this way. So I say, well, I know if this were matter, that would follow that equation. If this was solid, it would explain the way this particle moves. But I can't see anything here. So I'll just call it dark matter. And I'll say, I don't know what it is, but it behaves as if there was something there. The soul is obvious to everyone that there's something different between things that are alive and things that are not alive. But we have no idea what it is. It's currently unexplainable. I believe we need an entirely different system of analysis to try to figure out.
But
Sorry.
Very interesting. Very interesting insights from somebody to Epstein's level of crime. Okay. You have, again, this really emphasizes how the criminal mind is not this black and white thing. It's actually gray areas everywhere, right? When it comes to the criminal mind, that a lot of these times, these people are actually highly intuitive, highly introspective, and curious. And so it leads us to wonder, it's like, maybe there was somebody more evil than Epstein. You know, in the Epstein files, there was actually somebody who was emailing Epstein and threatening Epstein. So who was the person threatening Epstein? You know, who's the person who was giving Epstein the orders even? That's my question. So I feel like there's more to this story. They want to make Epstein to be out to be the main guy. They want Epstein to be the tip of the iceberg when I think really he's probably a lower level to all of this, and maybe he was just a good patsy. Because when I listen to him speak, this sounds like somebody who knows he might have been railroaded in the middle of all of this. Now, I'm not saying he was innocent at all. We all know everything he did. We all know, and again, innocent until proven guilty. We understand this. These are serious accusations. But at the same time, we also have to understand that, you know, the human being is complicated and complex. And so we have to be able to study these individuals and have some kind of fair take on, you know, their perceptions and their personalities and what they have to say. It helps us understand who they are, and so we can formulate, you know, a kind of path forward for these kind of individuals.
With Newton, you know, with all his alchemical studies and things he worked on the spiritual side, Leibniz that just talked about the soul, Schroeder talked about what is life. If a modern scientist or someone that you funded at MIT or at Harvard or one of these things talked in those types of terms, they would be considered to be a wingnut today, wouldn't they? They would not be on the path for tenure, right?
Unless they were in the philosophy department.
This is exactly my point. We're talking about three of the greatest mathematicians in mankind's history that have really changed mankind. Talking like this, what happened? How do we get to a situation where they could not be in the high physics, you know, they could not be in the mathematics department or working in high energy physics?
Good, it's an easy answer. Newton was a combination of mathematician or geometer then and philosopher.
Definitely.
And as time went on,
So was
those
Aristotle.
disciplines seemed to move apart. We had philosophy, some of the philosophers can't do math, and some of the mathematicians. And again, mathematicians often break into two categories. People that solve problems. Those are more like geometers in the old days, just problem solvers. And then there's thinkers, theoreticians. They're more like the old movement towards philosophy. But neither one of those two groups have been able to figure out why something is alive as opposed to something that's not alive. No one's been able to describe what the soul is, but we all know it exists.
What's interesting about Jeffrey Epstein, too, is that he combines both of his financial acumen and philosophical acumen. And I think this is an extremely important thing. He's very right. It's typical that you see people who are skilled in math, mathematics and arithmetic, things like that. Their brain is wired for that problem solving oriented kind of direction. And then somebody who's more theoretical and they theorize, right? They're thinkers, they're critical thinkers. Then they tend to conceptualize systems. And so who is the person who can do both of these things? And how dangerous is that person who can do both of these things? And when I look at somebody like Epstein, I look at somebody who definitely has both of these skills, both mathematical acumen and then philosophical acumen. Combining these two things creates, well, somewhat of a genius, somewhat of an Elon Musk type, an innovator, a futuristic type. Personality and psychographics, this would give you more of the commander ENTJ, the ENTJ or the INTJ personality types. But Enneagram, maybe on the Enneagram, he would score somewhere around a, maybe, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? I would say maybe a type 1, type 3. But you guys tell me. Leave it in the comments. And be sure to subscribe. And if you want to work in real estate, you want to work in business, let me know. I'm a CEO of Gold Shark Media AI. We help build AI systems. Then real estate, I can help you grow in real estate too. All right, let's get back to it.
And I think what we need is a new, science is a bad word. I think science only describes the things we already know about the physical world. In fact, there's an argument that the physical world that we see has been created out of our systems of mathematics. Mathematics, everyone knows mathematics describes the physical world much greater than it should, unless my view, the physical world really comes out of conscious beings that have mathematics. So they create it. This table appears to you and I to be solid. To a bat, because we have light that's bouncing off the table into our eyes, it appears solid. If instead of eyes that responded to wavelengths of visual light, our eyes responded to radio waves, the radio frequencies, it's not different, it's the same type of frequency as light, but different speeds, the table's invisible. We know that our phone works in this room. So
Epstein's next level thinking, man. Is Epstein Pepe? Is Epstein the Green Frogs? Is he a part of the Green Frog? I'm just saying, like, this guy's pretty, he knows his shit. He knows his stuff. He's awake. He definitely escaped the Matrix. That's what I'm saying. We all got to be on this level of thinking. I mean, again, I'm not glazing the guy, but at the end of the day, it's just like, he knows his stuff. You can easily tell he's well educated. And I wish more people sounded like this, actually. Like, I wish Donald Trump sounded like this. Honestly, I wish he talked more like this. Why don't we see that more often with some of these powerful people? And how come they use all of this power and all of this genius and all of this intellect to destroy things, to destroy the world, right? And it's like, imagine if these people had good intent with everything. Jeffrey Epstein sounds like he has great intent, right, when he's talking. And you just see so easily how people can lie and manipulate who they truly are. So that's kind of what I find interesting. And then also, he's definitely a futurist. This guy escaped the Matrix, and this is how you do it. You got to think this way.
Waves are coming through the windows. The waves are coming through the walls. So the walls are invisible to that type of radiation, that type of energy. The walls are, I can see them because my eyes, a physical system determines that the walls are there.
You, with Murray Geldman, you founded, or were the original donor, and had the idea of Santa Fe Institute. In 10 or 15 years later, that effort to study the complexity of systems mathematically.
Yes.
Was
it's a total failure. Yes.
A total failure.
Total failure.
Why is that?
It's the failure of science because, in fact, if to some extent science doesn't describe romance. I don't know why I'm attracted to somebody. I don't know. People are attracted to each other, and everyone has the same feeling. They've seen someone walk in the room, and they say, "Oh, that person gives me a creepy feeling." Science has tried to describe. Science doesn't describe what creepy feelings means. They just.
This is coming from, judging by what we know about Epstein, interesting response, to say the least.
No, it's a creepy feeling. I think women, as I said the last time, have an intuitive sense. What is intuitive? They have intuition, they have feelings, and they're able to deal in the realm of things that men, especially men like myself, find unexplainable. They have women have intuition, men see things a bit differently. Men want to measure everything. Women are not really that interested in measuring.
In what you're saying in macro terms, you actually think science, mathematics, maybe ultimately technology is moving to that more intuitive.
I think science and math are old-fashioned. And unfortunately, people are still taught that they have to learn algebra in school and certain things in school, as opposed to learning to have an emotional.
Is this what Larry Summers was trying to get at? Maybe he didn't say it perfectly enough, but what he was trying to get to in that system, the systems we study today, the way mathematics is either taught or understood, that women just haven't gotten up to the highest realms of engineering or physics or mathematics because of that. And you're actually implying that there's a either new branch of science, or we've hit an inflection point like in Newton that's going to go in a Newton took mankind in a different direction because he was able to measure. Then you had subatomic, non-Newtonian physics later. Are you saying that you think there's another developing field that's coming up that may take us, I don't know how many decades to get our hands around, but that's what's evolving out of this?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I think that mathematics, it's not the end of science. Every year someone says it's the end of, we can't discover everything. There's lots to discover with a relationship to the physical world, but we know a lot already. In respect to the unexplainable world, we almost know nothing. Women, again, sense it. And instead of Larry Summers, I won't digress too much, but Howard Gardner early on said, there's not one form of intelligence. It's not mathematical intelligence. There's emotional intelligence. There's kinesthetic intelligence. There's this argument that I reject that black people are less intelligent than white people. It's not true.
Oh, this went viral on X. This is the big clip. This is the big based Epstein clip that's been going viral on X. What do you guys think?
We know, for example, that if I was in the forest and I had to run from the lion or figure out a way not to be eaten, and my competition is a local African, I'm the one who's getting eaten because they have the intelligence to deal with their local environment.
Oh.
So it's just different. It's not better, it's not worse, but there's many differences amongst different types of people. And so people have different intelligences, and they excel in some intelligences usually, and less so.
But I see what he's saying, though. So everybody's saying they're getting this all wrong. From what I heard from that is like, listen, a native African who is in an African country, in an African safari, and then if a white European is in an African safari, based on environmental, okay, just based on the environment alone, the native African's probably going to survive a little better. That's what he's thinking. That's essentially his logic, because the native African, over centuries and centuries of having to survive in such climate and to survive in such, habitat, those kind of things, then they were forced to survive. So they're able to get out of that easier than if a white European was to be in the same situation. And he's talking about more environmental intelligence. And so there's different kinds of intelligence, and that's what Epstein's really saying here. But I thought it was hilarious on Twitter ads. People were just completely taking that one out of context, but I thought it was funny.
When did it come to, because the world of high finance is a world of pure reason, or is it a lot of emotion and gut checks and on trading desk and central banks when these decisions get made? Is it that high church, like the high church of science of high energy physics, or is it as much emotion that comes in as much as the mathematics and the reason?
It's a great question. I think if you talk to really experienced and successful traders, and you ask them how they know what's going on, they can't give you an answer. They don't know. They feel it. They can feel the way the market's moving. They can feel the way the stock's moving. And that these are not very well-defined terms. It's not it's difficult to put in mathematics terms. How did I feel it? You could look back and make guesses what I was seeing. But great traders feel it and then act on their feelings. That's the difference. Many people feel it but are afraid because they want a mathematical justification before they take that next step.
When you first got on the trading desk at Bear Stearns in the late 70s or mid 70s, were you shocked by how little actual understanding of mathematics that the traders comprehended?
Yeah, well, again, we had a Texas Instrument calculator. Most stockbrokers, especially before 1975, if they were good stockbrokers, could add. That's about it. They could multiply. If you could multiply, you were already in the top 15% of stockbrokers. Stockbrokers simply meant there's a story. When I went to the first person, I had no money. And I said, how much money do you make a year? And he said, $400,000. Impossible. I'm making $10,000.
That's probably more than your family had made in its entire existence.
Yes. And he makes it in a year. I said, what do you do? And he said, it's too complicated for you to understand. Which is what the main thrust of Wall Street people, they want to tell you it's too complicated. Because if you understood that that person was simply, he had a brother-in-law, in fact, in this case, who ran the pension fund at General Motors. His brother-in-law would call him and say, buy 1,000 IBM. He'd hang up the phone, he'd write it out on a ticket
Sopranos.
and walk it to a window. That was his entire skill set. Hello, write what my brother-in-law says, walk it to a ticket window.
Give me an example when you were on the trading desk in the early days at Bear Stearns of a time that you felt either complete uncertainty or you saw total panic, where something was happening that people couldn't foretell and that they were like in an airplane cockpit where it's going wrong. Walk us through that.
In 1978, I think it was, across the news wires, there had been a collapse of the currency in Thailand. On the other side of the world, had no relationship to me. I wasn't sure where Thailand was. But the fact that a currency, a country's money, had all of a sudden dropped tremendously in value, affected the rest of the world's markets. And people panicked because they'd never...
That's what's happening right now. The crypto markets are crashing and everybody's panicking. Are you invested in crypto? I hope so. And if you are, hopefully you're doubling down. But everything he's saying is happening right now.
They'd never seen that before. A very small part of a very complex system had a shock throughout the whole system.
It's exactly what's happening in
prices
crypto.
on Park Avenue apartments, the bond markets, the stock markets, every started to gyrate. You know, there's an old mathematics expression
He's
that
a smart guy.
if a butterfly
what you
wings
guys say, honestly.
in Mexico, make the wrong turn, it spins out, and eventually, by the time it gets to Canada, it turns into a tornado. So these are part of complex systems. So yeah, Wall Street in certain parts.
Santa Fe Institute was supposed to actually come up with a formula for that, for the butterfly wings. Why in 15 years did you reach the end of at least that experiment?
Every attempt to, that's why it's so exciting now.
And before we continue on, anybody who's watching, please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Help me grow the channel. I'm going to have more live streams. We'll have a live show every single day coming up here soon. And we're just getting the gist of OBS Studios. So again, help me out to grow. And also, if you want to grow in real estate, you want to grow in business, then be sure to work with me. Shoot me a DM, leave a comment, and I'll get with you. But we got about 15 minutes left of this, and then we'll wrap everything up.
Because I think certain people are starting to realize that there's so many things that are unexplainable that we have to think about them differently. Music is a great example. It's a common man's example. You know, when you hear a certain song, it makes you feel a certain way. How does it do that? We don't know. We can't mathematize it. And even that music, Steve, nowadays we compress music. When you have a violin, it's compressed onto your iPhone. So what does compression mean? I'm taking lots of information and I'm cutting it into lots of pieces and squishing it together. And when I squish it or compress it, I have to take out lots of pieces, but I say that they're not very important pieces. It's those pieces that we take out when we compress data, to me, are the most interesting parts of life.
You just said a while ago, part of this new search for science may go
agree.
back to when people were actually talking about a soul, and you said there's no doubt in your mind that there is a soul. Describe for me what you mean by that. What do you mean by soul? What do you mean soul different than the physical analog body that we're seeing on film right now?
It's difficult to describe in words. I mean, I'm not a poet. Poems get a little closer to what that really means. But even the concept of what is life becomes complicated when you deal with plants and seeds. Is a seed alive? I don't know. Certain people would say, no, it's dead. When you're a banana, one of my favorite examples is the banana that's sitting on the countertop in your kitchen today. Is it alive or dead?
What do you think about human life? Tell me about human life.
But your banana is alive. That banana is breathing. It's on your. You say that's impossible, Jeffrey. No, it's not.
Is the banana conscious?
All these words. These are words. So everyone's trying to fit a very complicated concepts into a very small box called conscious or alive. These don't fit in that way. So if you put your banana in a bag and put another fruit in with it, the fruit ripens faster because the banana breathes with it. We don't understand most of those things. So you asked the big question. Sorry.
You talk about the life. What about human life?
What about it?
Tell me what do you think? What do you think human life is?
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And when I say miracle, I can't explain it, and I make no attempt to explain it at the moment. We don't know how to think about it. And again, another one of the Feynman quotes when he was talking about quantum physics. He said, anyone, Jeffrey, who says they understand quantum physics and quantum mechanics and quantum behavior, you know they're lying.
Let's talk about it. That's post-Newtonian. Talk about what's the difference. Who founded quantum mechanics? Why is quantum mechanics taking Newtonian physics and taking it?
I feel like all of this information is like the red pill that everybody needed to hear for so long. This is the red pill. This is everything I've been saying for years, everything I've been saying since pre-COVID, and I was called crazy for it. All of this stuff, even for all the things that were found out in the Epstein files, all of it I was right about. Just saying. All of the conspiracy theorists and the right wing were all correct. And I'm just going to put that out there.
To the next level.
It forms a much broader category.
Let's go back to this desk. You used the thing of Newton using this desk. Why can't Newton's theory explain everything? Why did subatomic quantum mechanics or quantum physics have to come in to explain this?
Well, so let's go right back to square one. Why is it called quantum physics? So quanta is a word that simply means packet, small amount. So it's quantized. So when we recognize that this table appears, another very complicated word, solid to us, it's really made up of molecules or atoms. And atoms, we've given lots of names to what some of the behaviors. If you were in school, when you and I were in school in the 50s, the model was a little center thing in the middle, and an electron went around and around it. It was seen as a ball that went around and around it. And as we started to say, well, let's see what this ball looks like. I want to be able to examine that little thing called an electron. We found that there was nothing there. There wasn't the thing. It was simply a cloud of energy that we can call an electron. So we already started to see mysterious things as we go into very super small quantities, quantum physics. So quantum physics started to go into the very small, and at very small distances, we see things that we can't explain. We just cannot explain.
How am I doing on time?
4 minutes.
Fine.
And to summarize, no, sorry.
Let's go back to human life. When do you think human life starts?
It's not these. So you see, this is the question. You're asking me to measure something again. It's the
It
disease.
can't be measured. You just hate making commitments. Say
That's
measure,
why I'm not
no,
married.
I'm peeling this onion back a layer at a time. All your bullshit and happy
That
target can't be
smile,
measured, can't be
though,
measured like
man.
that.
Ugh.
Is that to say measure makes
Ugh.
it's a commitment. You don't even like a commitment when you answer a question.
I don't
As
know.
they say in golf, commit to the shot.
I don't know what it means to be measured.
You do know what it means to be measured. You're one of the leading currency traders,
Oh, he gets
hedge
pissed
fund
here.
guys, or stock
Epstein gets pissed here.
market financial wizards.
just
You're in
see
the
it.
high priesthood of high finance. You certainly
don't
know
like
how to
these
measure.
questions.
That's why you're a billionaire. Any other answer besides that is total and complete bullshit, and you know it.
I know very few things.
You know things can be measured. You measure every day. You weigh and measure every day. You weigh and measure people. You weigh and measure leaders. You weigh and measure
you're not-
economies. You weigh and measure politics.
It's a very
you,
good-
You
great.
weigh and measure. You weigh.
Hang on, hang on.
Your whole life, in fact, is measuring.
So what you've now done is a great thing, is you've used the word measure, a mathematic term, in the common vernacular and abused it. So I don't even recognize what it means. It's so abusive to my field.
Why? And let's go to that. In mathematics,
what
measure means what specifically?
There's no specific. It's an approximation, or giving something a number. If Einstein
We're
said,
not asking you to go to the ninth decimal point. On
"Oh,
everything.
you didn't say that before."
No, you're not going to the ninth.
I don't
decimal
even. What if
place.
I say measure how tall are you? You'd say, in your
6
case,
feet.
6 foot.
6 feet.
But is it 6 foot 1 inch?
Give or take, between 5'11" and
Now Epstein's just starting to fuck with him, kind of, if you haven't realized that.
6 feet.
But what's that? But I want. So the question is, I want an
It's
accurate.
Zeno's. I got Zeno's paradox.
I don't even know what it means
Right.
to measure you. Am I measuring the top of your hair? The top
He's
of your.
just he's totally playing dumb, and he's getting pissed at the questions, and so now he's basically just trying to dumb down Steve Bannon's question. He's just trying to play dumb with him. It's kind of hilarious.
Which and the finer the more.
You're being rabbinical. This is like
I shaved my beard off. I used to be rabbinical.
No, my point is, isn't that going through the Torah where you're parsing every definition?
No, so,
however we broadly define measure, your life literally is about measurement, is it not?
It's about putting numbers on things so that I can try
But that's
my
measurement.
best. You can call it whatever you like. If that
Well, what
makes
do
you feel
what-
better.
What do you know?
No, I
Because I'm
wanna
trying
make
to
you
relate it
happy.
back to your scientific inquiry.
No, even a number. People don't. A number is a complicated
When did
thing.
you come? When did you come to this When did you come to this aha moment? Was when it was in your solitary confinement, when the biggest financial crisis in world history was going on, in your 7x9 jail cell with your metal bed and your two brushes because you were a trustee with the brown uniform on, trustee spelled wrong. Is that?
Look at that. Look at that face. Look at that face. Epstein does not look happy right now. He does not look happy. He looks pissed.
At the moment of clarity that you had about science and Newtonian physics and everything that we can measure is really not going to be the way we go forward. It's going to be some more,
He
much
looks
more
super
esoteric,
irritated right now.
Emotional intelligence thing. Was that your moment of clarity?
I wish it was, because it would make such a great story for this interview, but it's not. It's the fact that I lead such a privileged life to come across.
But when did you? If it didn't happen then, when did it? Or did it happen before?
I was
then?
going to hopefully
Okay.
get to the.
Okay.
I'm in a privileged position to have some of the world's smartest people come to my house and tell me what they think about different subjects. And I finally realized that the thing that they had most in common was there was this area, no matter how smart they were, that when I asked them the questions, they said they'd have to resort to a 500 or 1,000-year-old response to that question, which was, I don't know.
You know who?
And just important to note that in the Epstein files, Epstein basically describes somebody who is super smart as Jewish. And so that is important. That's all over the Epstein files. So if you read those, you'll see that he has a strong dislike and a disdain towards what he calls goyim, or white people. But that's important to put into context, because that is in the Epstein files. And we'll be going over those in the Rumble live stream I end up doing in the next couple days here.
Who else found that out?
In
Socrates. That's what Socrates kept doing, right? Socrates kept asking all the experts. He would go through, question after question after question, and realize at the end they didn't really know. They really didn't basically understand what they were talking about.
And one of the things that people...
He's talking about the quote from Socrates, "I am an idiot and I know nothing." That is the quote from Socrates, basically stating that no matter how much you know, you actually don't know anything. We don't know anything about where we come from, and it's impossible to know. It's a never-ending mystery.
won't enjoy, it turns out that potentially one of the bad things to teach children is how to write.
I love this.
Writing, reading, and arithmetic was supposed to be, everyone's supposed to be taught. But writing forces you into a very narrow channel of thinking. You have to write in a certain form, in a certain way, in a certain linear pattern. So your thinking becomes somewhat narrow. The most interesting, the reason I brought up writing is one of the recent discoveries of mine with respect to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle is they never wrote anything. They spoke, and people around who could write wrote. Socrates could think.
It's a very interesting point. Very true.
Jesus of Nazareth was the same way, right? Never wrote anything.
And then he mocks
he was a
Jesus here.
carpenter.
He was a carpenter.
Didn't he need like a little carpenter's tool? I don't want to get that.
Yeah.
At least it's written
Jews
record.
don't like Christians.
One last thing.
So.
Thank you for having me
Allegedly.
to your house.
The final question.
Let's go back.
Look what vegetables does.
When did that, the beginning of that, was there any one aha moment in all these great thinkers? Did it happen before 2008? Was it after? That came up over, I know, many years, but when did you actually realize, hey, something new's got to be developed?
Yeah, that's great. Is that because again, I'm privileged enough to have people around me who've given lots of philanthropic gifts to institutions of higher learning, and when I said the impact, how do you judge the impact of your giving? And we sat down and said, no really new ideas have come out. And I realized that, of course, it hasn't come out because we've been looking at using science and mathematics, and it's the wrong tool. It's obvious.
Institutions that are set up and try to put forward knowledge and understanding and truth, should they take your money?
Derek Bach at Harvard said, taking money for good causes is a good thing.
So if Hitler took all the gold out of the teeth of the Jews and said, I want to give this to Heidelberg University to fund the Leibniz chairs so that I can study high energy physics, Derek Bach would say that was fine?
Again, these questions are questions where good people on both sides, like your Charlottesville, could differ. I don't know the answer to these questions.
So tell us the two. Give us the two answers. The one answer why it shouldn't be, and then the one answer. Derek Bach says, "I'll essentially take cash from anybody because I got so many projects, so many good guys, and this is the way I'll do it. So I'm indifferent to where the cash comes from. Money's money, and if I got good guys, I'm the fiduciary. Says these are good people and this is good research. Okay, I'll take the cash from any source, including you." What's the other argument?
Let me give you that. I know in my case,
is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just asked a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact,
why is it not dirty?
It's
money?
Always the answer, right?
Because I earned it,
But you earned it.
I earned it legally.
We went back to this before. You earned it. You earned it, advising the worst.
So notice that he says, I earned that money. There, again, no remorse behind his responses whatsoever. I earned that money. I worked hard for that money. That money is mine. No matter how I got it, means to an end. And so that describes a lot of this psychographic of Jeffrey Epstein. And, he's more of those people, means to an end. The ends justify the means. And that's typically more this kind of personality type.
People in the world, right, that do enormous bad things, and just to make more money.
So, instead of asking me the question, should you take the money? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
You think it's a legitimate question?
Yes, no
Why?
question. because because I think about, ethics is always a complicated subject, but I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India, instead of asking me whether that money should be given to these children for vaccines, I think you might want to ask their mothers who received the vaccine, who know their child now won't get polio, and ask them if Epstein should have helped these people.
If we walked in, you're a mathematician. You're a mathematician.
Something tells me Bill Gates had a lot to do with that one.
You're a mathematician. If we walked into that clinic where they're giving that money out to these people that are in the most dire straits of poverty and sickness, and told them that the money was coming from a, class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
What's tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, I'm
the lowest.
I'm the lowest.
You're the lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest.
The big question.
But a criminal.
Yes.
That the money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, I don't care, I want the money for my children?
I would say everyone said, I want the money for my children.
Did they know where the money came from?
I think if you told them,
I told them
the devil,
100%.
the devil
himself.
The devil himself said, I'm going to exchange some dollars for your child's life.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question.
Sorry.
Do you think you're the devil?
Wow. Very revealing response there. I do have a good mirror. And he gets visibly freaked out by that question.
Self.
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember the devil is somebody knows
smart?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
Satan is at the number 1 or 2 archangel, and the reason he goes to hell and leads the rebellion is because he can't be the top guy. And his thing is, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
I saw that in a movie once called American Dharma. I don't remember who said it. Okay, we have to go.
Okay, good. Okay, that was good.
And then he just abruptly ends the interview. And so I just found that to be extremely interesting. At the end of the day, very interesting interview, very interesting guy in general. Jeffrey Epstein is definitely a unique character type. And at the end of the day, we have to realize that, if we want to save America, we're going to have to find a way to truly expose the truth and to somehow be able to find a system that makes more sense. So with that being said, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.